Have you ever tried to dive into the vast world of Vedic scriptures and felt, well, a little lost? It can seem like this huge, complex library of ancient texts. But what if I told you there's a map? A surprisingly simple and logical architecture that makes sense of it all. So, to get our heads around this, let's forget about dusty bookshelves. Instead, let's use a much more powerful image as our guide: a magnificent tree of sacred wisdom. It's got these incredibly deep roots, a really solid trunk, and countless branches that are, believe it or not, still growing today. This one idea, this tree, is going to be our guide through everything. So here's how we're going to explore this tree. We'll start at the trunk with our really foundational divide. Then we'll dig down into the divine root, which is called Shruti. After that, we'll climb up into the human branches of Smruti. And finally, we'll zoom out and see the whole Vedic library, the entire tree in one complete picture. Okay, so let's get right to the heart of it. The single most important concept you need to know. The entire library of Vedic knowledge is split into two main categories. And that split is based on one simple idea. Where did the knowledge come from? What is its origin? And here it is. It's this simple. On one side you have Shruti, which literally means that which was heard. And on the other side you have Smriti, which means that which is remembered. Heard versus remembered. That's it. This one distinction is the absolute key to unlocking the whole system. So picture it, right? You've got the main trunk of our wisdom tree, and from it, two massive branches grow out. That's Shruti and Smriti. Every single text we're going to talk about can be traced back to one of these two fundamental categories. So what's the real difference between them? Shruti is the divine root of the tree. It's considered the absolute, most authoritative primary layer of wisdom. The idea is that these texts weren't written by any human. Instead, they were directly revealed or heard by ancient sages who were in these incredibly deep states of meditation. You could think of it as the divine source code. So if Shruti is the source code, then Smriti is everything that grows from it. It's the vast, ever-expanding tradition of human interpretation. It's all the apps, the software, the user manuals written by brilliant sages and scholars to explain and apply the timeless teachings of Shruti for different times and different people. All right, you with me? Let's dig down deep, right into the roots of our tree. We're going to zoom in on Shruti, that which was heard, and see exactly what makes up this foundational layer of scripture. And what do we find at the very core of Shruti? It's beautifully simple, really. There are four primary Vedas. These are the Rig Veda, the Samaveda, the Yajurveda, and the Atharva Veda. You can think of them as the four great pillars holding up the entire Vedic tradition. But it's even more structured than that. Each one of those Vedas has its own internal anatomy, kind of like layers of an onion. It starts with the Samhita. That's the raw power, the core hymns, and mantras. Then you get the Brahmanas, which are like the how-to manuals, explaining the rituals. And finally, you have the Aranyakas, the forest discourses. That's the deep, philosophical stuff, the why behind it all. Now, obviously, to really get the Vedas, you need some tools, right? That's where the Vedangas, or the limbs of the Vedas, come in. This is the whole toolkit you need to study them properly. Everything from phonetics and grammar for reciting them perfectly to astrology and rituals for applying the knowledge in the real world. And growing right alongside the Vedas, you have the Upavedas, which are basically applied sciences. This is where this ancient wisdom gets super practical, branching out into fields like economics and statecraft, warfare, music and the arts, and of course the incredibly famous science of life and medicine, Ayurveda. All right, let's climb back up from the roots and head over to that other massive branch on our tree. We're now shifting our focus to Smriti, the huge and diverse world of that which is remembered. This is where the human element just explodes with creativity. So here's the magic of Smriti. It takes those really profound, abstract, divine truths from Shruti and brings them down to earth. And how does it do that? By weaving them into unforgettable stories, organizing them into social laws, and explaining them through centuries of brilliant commentary. It makes them relatable. Of course, the most famous Smriti texts, the ones you've definitely heard of, are the great epics, known as the Itihasa. We're talking about the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. And nestled right inside the epic story of the Mahabharata, you find one of the most beloved and profound spiritual texts on the planet, the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. But the branches of Smriti just keep spreading. You've got the 18 Puranas, which are these incredible encyclopedias of mythology and cosmology. Then there are the Tantras, which lay out specific spiritual practices. And you also have the Dharma Shastras, which are basically the ethical and social guidebooks for living a good life. And this is so important to understand. Smriti is not some ancient, sealed-off library. No way. It's alive. It's a living, breathing tradition that's constantly growing, being expanded and reinterpreted by saints, scholars, and spiritual leaders. The tree is still putting out new leaves, which is just amazing when you think about it. Okay, we have been deep in the roots and we have explored the branches. Now it's time to step back, take a breath, and just take in the whole magnificent tree. We're going to see how all these pieces fit together into one unified system. We've broken it all down, piece by piece. So after all that, what does the whole thing actually look like when you put it back together, from the deepest root to the highest leaf? And there you have it, the complete map. See how it all flows? Right from that core distinction at the top, you've got Shruti on one side, the herd revelation, branching into the 4 Vedas and all their supporting texts. And on the other side, you have Smriti, the remembered tradition, just exploding into epics, laws, and the ongoing wisdom of saints and scholars. So look, if you remember just one thing from all of this, let it be this simple but powerful framework. It's the source code and the applications, the divine revelation and the human interpretation. It's the heard and the remembered. That's the fundamental architecture right there. Which leaves us with one last, kind of mind-blowing thought to chew on. This whole structure isn't just a historical diagram, it's a living system. And it really makes you wonder, how does a framework that was heard thousands of years ago continue to be remembered, reinterpreted, and find new meaning in our world today?